Hey guys, so my name is Caleb Root. This is my first time doing a blog of any form or fashion. In class today, we were discussing, hypothetical curated films, and the topic of queer representation or queer references in early animation really stuck out to me. So I figured that I kind of wanted to talk about that a bit more in depth. 10 of the films and TV series that came to my mind when thinking about this topic were as follows. It was Mulan, Little Mermaid, Rocko's Modern Life. There was a specific scene in the movie that came out recently, not the original series, but I'll get more in depth in that in this blog. And then there's also the Rugrats with Betty DeVille. I'm pretty sure that most of us who grew up with Rugrats, myself included, know that the twins, Phil and Lil, their mom, Betty DeVille, is a very passionate mother who loves her children ever so dearly. And in the recent remake of the series on Paramount Plus, they made her an openly lesbian character, when in the original series she was straight, she had a husband and everything. So there is more to read about that in my blog, and you can do your own research, but this is just an honest opinion of things that I think would be great to discuss. On that same list is also the X-Men, because most of us grew up reading a lot of Stan Lee comics, a lot of Marvel comics, and just diving into this world. And the X-Men themselves represent something bigger than most of us can really just, comprehend or focus on, due to the fact that the X-Men initially started off as a way to kind of be a rights movement of sorts, where it was discussing, there was gender identity, there was the conversation of, power discrepancies, excuse me. And then there's, also in that subsect of, are mutants considered just, another race of beings? Are they a higher being, a better being, or are they considered, this horrible thing that needs to be shunned or whatever? But these comics, they mean a lot to me, and through the comics we got the animations, we got, the original X-Men, the animated series back in the 90s, which was a classic in my opinion. It unfortunately didn't show any queer references in the animated series, but that's because at the time they were afraid to take such a big name and try and do something as bold as this. But in the comics in later years, they actually did officially state that a lot of their characters were queer, that they were either trans or bisexual, lesbian, gay. There's even some characters that are gender fluid, such as Mystique, who makes the most sense because she's literally a shapeshifter. But I'm getting off topic. The point is, these movies and series, they all hold a deeper meaning to us than some of us might even know. I mean, take for example one of the biggest names that I can think of when I think of early animation and early cartoons. I think Looney Tunes. I think something just as simple as Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner, and characters that, made us laugh. Yes, his cross-dressing was usually put on there as just a joke, just as a gag in order to fool Yosemite Sam or Taz the Tasmanian Devil or any of those beloved characters. But in later years, they just went with it so often that they literally made Bugs, say in one of the later adaptations of Looney Tunes, where it was more of a reality sitcom. It was kind of interesting. I honestly recommend checking out that version if you're a fan of Looney Tunes. You might like it, you might not. All iterations are up to the writers and the creators, but it is an interesting one because he does talk about, how cross-dressing is just, kind of fun and just kind of funny, but at the same time it's kind of relieving and kind of makes him feel whole at times. So it's it's kind of a take it or leave it type thing. But back to the topic at hand of why I would include these. The reason that I personally want these included in like a hypothetical curated film series is honestly what they represent. To most people, they just represent, a fun animated movie that is for kids. I mean, a lot of us remember growing up and watching Mulan as children and just thinking, wow, this is such an empowering movie about this young girl who took her father's armor and sword in her hands and is going and saved China. But there's more to it than that, in reality. There's also a bit of identity that's tackled in the film. For example, in the movie itself, there is a song. I don't remember exactly the name of the song, but it is something about the woman in the reflection, where she says, "Who's that girl I see staring back at me?" Where she's looking at her own reflection, and it's almost like it's something that she doesn't want to see. This version of her isn't actually her. Where she's got the makeup on, she's got the lipstick on, she's looking all pretty for the matchmaker in the hopes of finding a husband because it's what her mother and grandmother want for her. But when she looks in the reflection, that's not who she sees. She doesn't see the girl that her family sees. She just sees herself and possibly somebody else that she truly wants to be. So later on, when she decides to become a man in order to join the army and keep herself and her father safe specifically, maybe she was finding her identity at that time. We can't really say for sure or certain that that is the way that they wanted to go with the film. Maybe it was just a little, shove to the side. This is a possibility type bit of the story. But when I talked with a lot of our classmates in this course, a lot of them all resonated with Mulan as being a trans allegory of trying to find yourself, trying to come out, and finally feeling right in your own body. So at the end of the day, these films, while they are kind of childish and can easily be written off as just another movie that can be added to the collection, or just were made in a time where they were running out of source material, perhaps. I think at the end of the day, they're a lot more than that. They're symbols. They're almost like statues that cement and mark a placement of where we needed queer representation. Now, a lot of the shows that I chose, I admit, I could have chose better. American Dad is kind of a bit of a stretch, and it's kind of weird. Simpsons, a little bit too easy of, the low fruit on the tree. Queer Duck, honestly, I'd never heard about it until recently, and looking at it, it was off-putting to say the least, but not for the reasons you'd think. It was almost like a joke of itself, and to a degree, I think that's where they went wrong. While it was literally supposed to just be a web series, it ended up becoming just this monotonous show. But I'm getting off topic. I hope that you enjoy reading the blog, and I honestly want to hear your opinions on it. I hope that you ask me questions that I hope that I can answer, or give your own opinions. Tell me some films that maybe reached out to you that I never thought about. Some character that spoke to you in a way that no other character had before. Tell me your own experiences from childhood. Just let me know. I appreciate your time. Thank you. And again, I'm Caleb, signing off.